The Haunted Painting. Hello friends, welcome to the Horror Ghost Stories. The story begins. The story begins with a young couple, Mark and Olivia, who have recently purchased an old Victorian home in a quiet, remote part of the countryside. The house, though charming and picturesque, has a history that seems to linger in the shadows. Mark, a history professor, is thrilled about the move, eager to escape the fast-paced life of the city and immerse himself in his research. Olivia, on the other hand, feels a sense of unease about the house, especially after they discover a large, eerie painting that hangs above the fireplace in the main living room. The painting depicts a family: an elegant woman dressed in a long, flowing gown, a man with a stern expression, and two children. But it's not just the family that seems out of place. The background of the painting is dark, almost foreboding, with twisted trees and a stormy sky. The woman's eyes, especially, seem to follow them wherever they go in the room. Olivia is unsettled by the portrait, but Mark brushes it off as her overactive imagination. He convinces her that it's simply an old piece of art that adds character to their new home. As time passes, the couple settles into their new life, but Olivia begins to notice strange occurrences. She often feels a cold draft in the living room, even when the windows are shut tight. At night, she hears faint whispers, low, indistinguishable voices that seem to echo through the walls. She tries to ignore it, thinking it's just the house settling or her mind playing tricks on her. But things grow worse. Objects in the house are moved when no one is around, and sometimes, when she walks past the living room, she swears she sees the figures in the painting shift slightly, but just enough to make her doubt what she is seeing. One night, after a particularly unsettling experience, Olivia confronts Mark about the painting. She insists that there is something wrong with it, that it feels as if the people in the painting are alive, trapped within its frame. Mark laughs it off, dismissing it as nothing more than a coincidence, but deep down, he starts to feel a growing unease, too. The painting has a strange pull on him. It's as if it beckons him, calling him to look closer, to study the figures more intensely. At times, he even feels as though he could hear a voice inside his head, urging him to uncover the truth behind the painting. Driven by a mix of curiosity and a nagging sense of dread, Mark begins to research the history of the house and the painting. He discovers that the house was once owned by a wealthy family in the early 1900s. The woman in the painting, Evelyn Hargrave, was the lady of the house, married to a man named Samuel, with two children. However, the family's story took a dark turn when, one stormy night, the house was consumed by fire. Evelyn and her family perished in the blaze, and the house was abandoned for years. The painting, it turns out, had been a commissioned portrait of the family, created just months before their tragic deaths. But there was something odd about the portrait. It had always been said that the eyes of the family members seemed unnervingly lifelike, almost too real. Mark's discovery only intensifies the eerie atmosphere in the house. Late at night, he begins to see visions of the family in the painting moving, their eyes locked onto him with a sense of anger, sadness, and despair. He feels an overwhelming compulsion to learn more, even as his grip on reality begins to weaken. One evening, while studying the painting closely, Mark notices something he hadn't seen before, a hidden message written on the back of the canvas. It's a warning, written in a shaky hand, that reads, "The souls are trapped, and so will you be if you try to set them free." Terrified, Mark tells Olivia about the message. She is now convinced that the house is haunted, and the painting is the source of the torment. However, Mark becomes obsessed with the idea of releasing the souls trapped within the painting. He believes that the family's restless spirits are trapped within the canvas and that, by solving the mystery of their deaths, he can set them free. But as he delves deeper into the house's history, the sinister influence of the painting begins to take hold of him. One night, Mark decides to take matters into his own hands. He sets up a ritual to try to communicate with the spirits, thinking that perhaps he can unlock the truth and end the curse once and for all. He stands in front of the painting, his heart pounding in his chest, and begins to chant the words he found in an old, dusty tome he'd uncovered in the attic. As he chants, the room grows colder, and the air seems to thicken, pressing in on him. The figures in the painting begin to move, slowly at first, but then more violently, their faces contorting in pain and rage. Evelyn's eyes, once passive, now glimmer with malice, her mouth opening as if to scream. Suddenly, Mark is pulled forward, as if by an invisible force, and he feels himself drawn into the painting. The room spins wildly as he is sucked into the canvas, feeling the cold, suffocating embrace of the painted figures surrounding him. Olivia, hearing his screams, rushes into the room, but it's too late. She watches in horror as Mark disappears into the painting, leaving only a faint, distorted echo of his voice behind. The house falls eerily silent, save for the faint crackling of the fire in the hearth. Olivia, now alone, feels a desperate need to save her husband. She grabs a knife and begins slashing at the canvas, trying to free Mark from whatever hold the painting has over him. But no matter how hard she tries, the painting refuses to give way. The brush strokes seem to shift and change, warping around the edges of the canvas as if the painting itself is alive, fighting back. The figures in the painting leer at her, their eyes filled with hunger and rage. Evelyn's expression twists into a terrifying smile, and the children's faces contort into grotesque, inhuman shapes. As Olivia continues her futile attempts to tear the painting down, the house around her begins to collapse. The walls shake, and the ceiling groans as if the very foundation of the house is giving way. She can feel the weight of the house's malevolent energy pressing down on her, threatening to crush her spirit. Just when it seems like all hope is lost, Olivia notices something: the painting is starting to fade. The colors are becoming dull, the figures losing their form. It's as if the souls trapped within are being pulled back into the painting, leaving only emptiness in their wake. In a final act of desperation, Olivia steps back from the canvas and whispers a prayer. She promises to never disturb the painting again, to leave it alone and let the spirits rest. For a moment, everything falls still. Then, with a final, eerie whisper, the voices of the family fade into nothingness. The house, once so filled with malevolent energy, becomes silent. The painting, now lifeless and faded, no longer holds the same terrifying presence. Olivia, exhausted and broken, stumbles back into the living room, the echoes of the painting's curse fading into the background. As she leaves the house, she looks back one last time. The house remains standing, but the painting, the thing that had haunted her every step, stays behind, hanging in its place, empty and still. But even as she walks away, she can't shake the feeling that, somewhere deep within the canvas, the souls of the Hargrave family still lurk, waiting for the next soul to fall victim to their curse. As Olivia walks away from the house, a heavy sense of relief washes over her. The tormenting whispers that had plagued her mind for weeks seem to have ceased, and the oppressive weight that had suffocated her spirit now feels lifted. She moves quickly down the path leading from the house, determined to leave it all behind. But the air outside feels unnervingly still, and the atmosphere around her seems oddly tense, as though something unseen is watching her every move. Days pass, and Olivia struggles to move on. She stays with a friend in a nearby town, unable to shake the vivid images of the house and the cursed painting. At night, she is haunted by dreams of Mark, his face distorted and trapped behind the glass of the painting, silently screaming for help. She wakes up drenched in sweat, heart racing, only to find herself alone in her bed, the silence of the room mocking her fears. Yet something lingers within her, an unsettling feeling that she hasn't truly escaped. One morning, while walking through town, Olivia hears whispers behind her. Soft at first, like the rustling of leaves, but then clearer, more distinct. She stops in her tracks, her blood running cold as she turns to look around. No one is there, but the whispering continues, almost like a chorus of voices calling her name. In the distance, a small antique store catches her eye. Her gaze is drawn to the window, and within, she sees something familiar, the unmistakable frame of the painting. Her heart skips a beat as she steps closer to the window, staring into the dimly lit shop. The painting, hanging in the store's front display, is exactly the same one that had cursed her life, except this time, the figures in the painting are different. The woman, Evelyn, still stares with that chilling, lifelike gaze, but now, Mark's face is clearly visible among the family. His eyes are wide with terror, locked onto her, as though pleading for her to understand. His image is distorted, fading at the edges, as if he is being consumed by the canvas. Olivia's breath catches in her throat, and panic surges through her veins. She rushes into the shop, the bell above the door jangling as she enters. The store owner, an elderly man with a stoic expression, looks up at her with a knowing smile. "Ah, you've seen it," he says, his voice raspy. "It's quite a piece. I acquired it from a collector a few days ago. It's been through many hands, but it always finds its way back to someone who can feel its pull." Olivia's heart races as she steps toward the painting, transfixed by the horrifying image of Mark's face. How did you get this?" she asks, her voice trembling. The elderly man looks at her with a sad, almost sympathetic expression. "It's been passed down through generations. Every time it's sold, someone becomes obsessed with it. And every time, it takes something from them, something more than just their peace of mind." He pauses, eyeing Olivia carefully. "It's cursed, you know. That family, they never left. Their souls are trapped in the painting, and anyone who dares to engage with it becomes part of their story." Olivia stares at the man in disbelief, her mind racing. I saw it. I tried to destroy it. I tried to free them. But I failed." She feels the tears welling up, the overwhelming sense of failure crashing over her. "Mark, he is in there. I saw him, he is still in the painting, but he is changing. I don't understand what happened. What did I do wrong?" The old man's expression darkens. "Once you disturb the painting, once you try to release them, you've made a pact. You cannot simply destroy it. The curse doesn't work like that. It twists your perception, traps you in a never-ending loop. Every person who has tried to destroy it has only made it stronger, more sentient. Mark didn't just get pulled into the painting, he became part of it. You freed their spirits, but in doing so, you trapped yourself in their world. Olivia stumbles back, horrified. The realization hits her like a ton of bricks. She never truly escaped. The painting had manipulated her, pulling her into its web even when she thought she was freeing herself. Mark's spirit, along with the others, was now bound to the painting, but so was she. She had been so focused on freeing him that she never understood the true cost of her actions. In a haze of panic, Olivia turns to leave the store, but as she reaches the door, she hears the voice again, Mark's voice, whispering her name. It's not a memory, not a dream. It's here, in the present, echoing through her mind. She turns back, her gaze locking on the painting. The faces of the family now twist with a sinister glee, their expressions contorted into grotesque smiles as they all seem to stare at her, as if mocking her attempts to escape. Olivia realizes that the figure in the painting, Evelyn, the woman she always thought was the most sinister, has now shifted. Her mouth is open in an unholy scream, and Olivia hears it, an agonizing wail that pierces her mind. The spirits of the family are no longer trapped, they're free, and they're reaching out for her. Her heart races as she stumbles backward. The elderly man watches her with a grim expression. It's already begun. It's too late. The painting won't let you go now. She doesn't know what to do. The realization that she is now a part of the painting, that she too is trapped within its cursed existence, weighs on her. It's as if the very walls of reality are bending around her, warping into the twisted form of the painting. The world around her begins to lose its clarity, replaced by the distorted landscape of the painted world, the dark trees, the stormy sky, the cold, lifeless expressions of the trapped souls. Olivia screams, but the sound is swallowed up by the oppressive silence of the painting. The edges of her vision blur, and as she stumbles backward, she feels herself drawn into the canvas, just as Mark had been. The cold, inescapable sensation of being absorbed into the painting washes over her, and for the first time, she understands the truth. The cursed souls of the Hargrave family, the tortured spirits of those who had perished in the fire, weren't the only ones trapped. She, too, has become part of their eternal torment. The last thing she sees is Mark's face, pale and distorted, his eyes filled with regret, just before the canvas consumes her completely. And as the final remnants of her reality fade into the twisted, inescapable landscape of the painting, the whispers return louder now, the voices of all the trapped souls, beckoning the next victim. The end.